Captain Sarah Chun stood on the observation deck of the research station orbiting New Terra, watching the sunrise paint the planet's surface in golden light. The colony below was small but growing. 15,000 people had made their home. On this world, far from Earth, they had farms, schools, and even a small university. Children born here had never seen Earth's blue skies, but they were happy. Sarah smiled as she watched the morning shift begin. Farmers headed to their fields. Scientists prepared for another day of exploring their new world. Teachers got ready to fill young minds with knowledge. It was peaceful. It was exactly what humanity had dreamed of when they first reached for the stars. 3 years ago, humans had finally cracked the secret of faster-than-light travel. The breakthrough came after decades of research and testing. The first successful warp drive test had been a moment of celebration across Earth. Humanity was no longer trapped in one solar system. They could explore. They could spread across the galaxy. They could build new homes among the stars. The first colony ship left Earth 18 months later. New Terra was the destination. It was a perfect world, similar to Earth, but without the pollution and overcrowding. The colonists were volunteers, brave souls who wanted to start fresh. They packed everything they needed to build a civilization. From scratch. New Terra was followed by 2 more colonies. Harmony Station was built around a gas giant rich in rare elements. The third colony, Haven, sat on a world with vast forests and clear oceans. Each settlement was small but full of hope. Humanity was taking its first careful steps into the larger galaxy. The colonies stayed in contact with Earth through quantum communication arrays. Every week brought news from home and updates on life in the new worlds. Children on Earth learned about alien flowers and strange animals. Families on the colonies heard about new inventions and political changes back home. The human species was spread across 3 star systems, but they remained connected. Sarah had been assigned to coordinate defense for all 3 colonies. It was mostly a paperwork job. Humanity had encountered no other intelligent life in their explorations. The galaxy seemed empty of other civilizations. The biggest threats were equipment failures and the occasional space storm. Sarah's small fleet of patrol ships spent most of their time helping with cargo runs and emergency rescues. The peaceful morning was shattered by an alarm. Sarah's communication panel lit up with urgent messages. She rushed to the command center, her heart racing. The duty officer, Lieutenant Martinez, looked up from his console with confusion and fear in his eyes. "Captain, we're getting reports from the outer sensor network. Multiple unknown ships are approaching all 3 colonies simultaneously. They're not responding to our communication attempts." Sarah studied the tactical display. Red dots appeared on the screen, representing the approaching ships. There were dozens of them, moving in perfect formation. Their technology was clearly advanced. They had appeared without any warning, suggesting stealth capabilities far beyond human science. "How long until they reach us?" Sarah asked. 43 minutes for the lead ships, Martinez replied. "Captain, these aren't exploration vessels. The computer is reading massive weapon signatures." Sarah's blood turned cold. Humanity's first contact with alien life was not going to be the peaceful meeting they had always imagined. She opened a communication channel to all human ships and stations in the system. "All units, this is Captain Chun. We have incoming alien vessels with apparent hostile intent. All civilian ships are to evacuate immediately. Military vessels are to form defensive positions around the colonies. This is not a drill." And the next 40 minutes passed in a blur of activity. Civilian ships fled toward the edge of the system. The few human military vessels moved to intercept the alien fleet. Sarah's small force was completely outmatched, but they had to try to protect the civilians below. The alien ships were unlike anything in human databases. They were sleek and angular, covered in what looked like armor plating. Each ship was larger than anything humans had built. As they came closer, Sarah could see weapons ports opening along their hulls. "This is Captain Sarah Chun of the Human Colonial Defense Force," she broadcast on all frequencies. "You are approaching human civilian settlements. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions. The response came not in words but in weapons fire. Beams of energy lanced out from the alien ships, striking the human patrol vessels. The first ship exploded in a ball of fire and metal. The second managed to return fire before it too was destroyed. Within minutes, Sarah's entire defensive fleet was gone. The alien ships ignored the fleeing civilian vessels and focused on the colonies themselves. They moved into orbit around New Terra and began bombarding the surface. The energy weapons carved through the colony's shields like they were made of paper. Buildings that had taken years to construct were vaporized in seconds. Sarah watched in horror from her station as the city below burned. The hospital where her friend Dr. Park worked disappeared in a flash of light. The school where her nephew attended classes was reduced to rubble. Thousands of people were dying, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The attack was not random destruction. The aliens targeted specific buildings with precision. They hit the communication centers first, cutting off contact with Earth and the other colonies. Government buildings were next, followed by power plants and transportation hubs. It was clear these aliens understood human society and knew exactly how to cripple it. Sarah tried to organize an evacuation, but the alien ships had positioned themselves to cover all escape routes. Any ship that tried to leave the planet was immediately destroyed. The colonists were trapped with no way out. The bombardment continued for 6 hours. When it finally stopped, New Terra was a wasteland. The beautiful cities were gone. The farms were burned fields, the forests were ash. Of the 15,000 people who had called New Terra home, perhaps a few hundred survived in underground bunkers. Similar scenes played out at Harmony Station in Haven. The alien fleet had struck all 3 colonies at exactly the same time. The attack was coordinated and thorough. They had not come to conquer or negotiate. They had come to destroy. As Sarah tried to process what had happened, her communication system received one final transmission from the alien fleet. It was in broken human language, clearly translated by computer. Attention inferior species. You have been identified as potential future threat to galactic stability. Your expansion has been terminated. Your colonies have been cleansed. Do not attempt to establish new settlements beyond your home system. Further violations will result in the sterilization of your homeworld. This message is brought to you by the hegemony of Kethver, protectors of galactic order. The alien ships departed as quickly as they had arrived, leaving behind only death and destruction. Sarah's research station was one of the few human structures left intact, apparently too small to be considered a threat. She sat alone in the command center, staring at the ruins of humanity's dreams. The attack had taken less than a day, but it had changed everything. Humanity had reached for the stars with hope and wonder. They had found only enemies who would not tolerate their existence. The peaceful explorers were dead. The scientists and teachers and farmers were gone. All that remained was the terrible knowledge that somewhere in the galaxy, an alien empire had declared war on the human race. Sarah began composing her report to Earth, though she wondered if anyone would be left to read it. The message was simple and devastating. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, but their new neighbors had made their intentions clear. They would not allow humans to spread among the stars. They had attacked first without warning or provocation. Now it would be up to Earth to decide how to respond. The age of human innocence was over. The age of human survival was about to begin. The emergency session of the United Earth Council convened 12 hours after receiving Captain Chun's report. Representatives from every nation sat in stunned silence as the holographic display showed the destruction of humanity's 3 colonies. 2 million people were dead. Entire families had been wiped out. Children who had never known war were gone forever. President Elena Vasquez of the Americas Union stood at the podium, her face grave. The weight of humanity's future rested on the decisions made in this room. Around the chamber, delegates whispered among themselves in dozens of languages, but the message was the same in all of them. Humanity was under attack. The facts are clear, President Vasquez began. An alien empire called the HFY Hegemony has declared war on our species. They have murdered 2 million innocent civilians without warning or provocation. They have threatened to destroy Earth itself if we attempt to expand beyond our solar system. The Chinese representative, Minister Chun Wei, raised his hand. What do we know about their military capabilities? How many ships do they have? How advanced is their technology? Captain Chen's voice came through the communication link from her damaged station. From what I observed, their technology is significantly more advanced than ours. Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful, and their shields nearly impenetrable. The attack was coordinated across 3 star systems simultaneously. This suggests they have substantial resources and experience in warfare. The Russian delegate, General Petrov, leaned forward in his chair. What are our options? Do we attempt diplomacy? Do we surrender and accept their terms? President Vasquez looked around the chamber. The HFY made their position clear. They consider us a future threat and will not tolerate our expansion. They attack civilian populations without mercy. Diplomacy appears impossible with an enemy that opens communication with genocide. The debate that followed lasted 14 hours. Some delegates argued for attempting peaceful contact. Others suggested hiding and hoping the aliens would leave them alone. A few proposed immediate surrender to save what remained of humanity. But as the hours passed, a different consensus began to emerge. Dr. Sarah Kim, the head of Earth's largest research consortium, stood to address the council. I have been analyzing the data from the attack. The HFY ships used energy weapons and particle beams, but nothing that violates known physics. Their shields appear to be electromagnetic in nature. Their faster-than-light drives leave detectable. Energy signatures, they are advanced, but they are not gods. General Martinez of the Earth Defense Force nodded. Dr. Kim is correct. We are behind in technology, but the gap can be closed. The question is whether we have the will to do what is necessary. President Vasquez called for a vote. The resolution was simple but profound. Earth would not surrender. Earth would not hide. Earth would prepare for war. The vote was unanimous. Within hours of the Council's decision, something unprecedented in human history began. Every major corporation received orders to retool their production lines for military purposes. Car factories began producing armor, plating for spaceships. Electronics companies shifted to building targeting systems and communication arrays. Even toy manufacturers found themselves making components for weapon systems. The world's universities closed their liberal arts departments and focused entirely on engineering, physics, and computer science. Students who had been studying literature found themselves learning about reactor design. Art majors were retrained as technicians. Philosophy professors became strategic planners. Every academic resource was redirected toward the war effort. Dr. Elizabeth Harper had been working on theoretical warp drive improvements at MIT when the attack occurred. Now she found herself leading a team of 300 scientists in a classified facility beneath the Nevada desert. Their mission was simple: make human ships faster than anything the HFY had. The alien ships use what appears to be a folded space drive, Dr. Harper explained to her team during their first meeting. They bend space-time to reduce the distance between 2 points. Our current warp drives work differently, creating a bubble of altered space around the ship. If we can combine both methods, we might achieve superior performance. The work was grueling. Dr. Harper's team worked 18-hour days, sleeping in bunks in the facility and eating meals at their workstations. Similar scenes played out in research centers across the globe. In Japan, teams worked on improving shield technology. In Germany, scientists focused on weapon development. In India, researchers tackled the challenge of building ships faster than ever before. Meanwhile, Earth's industrial capacity underwent a transformation that dwarfed anything seen during previous wars. The orbital shipyards above Earth expanded rapidly. New construction platforms were built in the asteroid belt. Mining operations were established on Mars and the moons of Jupiter. Every resource in the solar system was mobilized for the war effort. Admiral Jackson, commander of Earth's Space Forces, stood in the new command center on Luna Base, watching the construction activity through massive viewports. Hundreds of ships were taking shape in the zero-gravity shipyards. These were not exploration vessels or research ships. They were warships built for one purpose: destroying the enemy. How many ships will we have ready in 18 months? Admiral Jackson asked his chief of staff. Current projections show 350 combat vessels, sir. That's assuming no major setbacks in production or testing? The admiral nodded grimly. 350 ships seemed like a large number, but he knew the Kethver had destroyed humanity's colonial defenses without losing a single vessel. The new fleet would need to be more than numerous. It would need to be superior in every way. The social changes on Earth were just as dramatic as the industrial ones. Military service became mandatory for all citizens between 18 and 40. Those who could not serve in combat were assigned to support roles in factories, research facilities, or logistics operations. Children attended school half-days and spent the other half learning skills needed for the war effort. Dr. Kim found herself in charge of the most ambitious project of all, creating a new class of humans, capable of operating in space for extended periods. Using advanced genetic therapy and cybernetic implants, her team was developing soldiers who could survive in the harsh environment of space warfare without bulky suits or life support systems. We are not just building better ships, Dr. Kim explained to a gathering of world leaders. We are building better humans. Soldiers who can think faster, react quicker, and fight longer than any baseline human. The Kethver see us as an inferior species. We will prove them wrong. The psychological transformation was perhaps the most significant change of all. Humanity had always been a species prone to conflict among themselves, but the alien attack had united them like nothing before. National boundaries became meaningless. Religious differences were set aside. Political ideologies were forgotten. There was only one identity that mattered now. Human. Captain Chun, recovered from her injuries and promoted to admiral, stood before a gathering of the new officer corps. These were not the peacekeepers and explorers of the old Earth Defense Force. They were warriors, trained for one mission: the complete destruction of humanity's enemies. The Kethver made a crucial mistake, Admiral Chun told her officers. They assumed that by destroying our colonies they would terrify us into submission. They believed that by showing us their superior technology we would accept their dominance. They were wrong. She gestured to the display showing the bustling shipyards and training facilities. They have awakened something they do not understand. Humans do not simply fight wars, we industrialize them. We turn our entire civilization into a weapon. They wanted to eliminate a potential future threat. Instead, they have created an actual present danger. 18 months after the attack on the colonies, Earth's transformation was complete. The peaceful, divided, and somewhat naive species that had first reached for the stars was gone. In its place stood something new, a unified, militarized, and technologically advanced civilization with a single goal. The Kethver had sent their message clearly. They did not want humans spreading across the galaxy. They considered humanity a threat to be eliminated. They had attacked first without mercy or warning. Soon, they would learn what happened when humans decided to attack back. The shipyards were ready, the soldiers were trained, the weapons were tested. Humanity had spent 18 months preparing for this moment. The Kethver had started this war, but humans were going to finish it. The age of human exploration was over. The age of human conquest was about to begin. 2 years and 3 months after the destruction of humanity's colonies, Kethver sensor stations detected massive movement in the Sol system. Fleet Commander Zekthal studied the readings from his command ship, orbiting the dead world of New Terra. His forces had maintained a watch on the humans since the cleansing operation, expecting desperate attempts at evacuation or pitiful revenge attacks. "What are you seeing, Sensor Chief?" Zekthal asked, his forearms working the controls of his command console, Large-scale fleet movements, Commander. The humans appear to be assembling ships near their homeworld. Energy signatures suggest approximately 300 vessels. Zekthal S. Mouthparts clicked in what passed for laughter among his species. 300 of their primitive ships? They learned nothing from our demonstration. Send a patrol fleet to finish what we started. Use standard cleansing protocols. The Kethver had been the dominant military power in this region of the galaxy for over 1,000 years. They had eliminated dozens of emerging species before those civilizations could become threats. The humans were no different from the others. A few years of hiding and building inferior weapons, then a desperate last stand that would end in their extinction. Patrol Fleet Gamma consisted of 47 ships, more than enough to handle whatever the humans had managed to build. Commander Veltar, a veteran of 15 cleansing operations, led the fleet toward the Sol system. His ships were equipped with the latest Kethver technology, plasma cannons that could melt through any known armor, shields that had never been penetrated, and faster-than-light drives that were the envy of the galaxy. As the patrol fleet approached the edge of the Sol system, their sensors began picking up the human ships. Commander Veltar examined the readings with growing confusion. The energy signatures were unlike anything in the Kethver databases. The ships themselves appeared larger than expected, and there were far more of them than initial reports had suggested. Sensor Chief, confirm those numbers, Veltar ordered. Sir, I am. Reading 352 human vessels. They are arranged in what appears to be a battle formation near the fourth planet of their system. Veltar frowned. The humans had built more ships than expected, but quantity meant nothing against superior technology. He opened a communication channel to broadcast the standard ultimatum. Attention human vessels. You are in violation of hegemony decree. Disperse immediately or face destruction. You have 60 seconds to comply. The response came not in words but in action. The human fleet began moving toward the Kethver patrol at incredible speed. Their ships accelerated faster than should have been possible, covering the distance between the fleets in minutes rather than hours. Commander, their velocity is impossible, the navigation officer reported. No known drive system can achieve that acceleration. Before Veltar could respond, the first human weapons fired. Beams of pure energy, brighter and more focused than anything the Kethver had ever seen, lanced across space. The leading Kethver ship, the destroyer Kethanol, took a direct hit to its forward shields. The shields failed instantly. The beam continued through the ship's armor, as if it were made of paper, cutting the destroyer in half. The two pieces of the ship tumbled away into space, trailing atmosphere and debris. All ships, evasive maneuvers, Veltar shouted. Return fire. Destroy those primitive ... His words were cut off as a human missile struck his command ship, but this was not an ordinary explosive. The warhead contained some kind of exotic matter that created a small tear in spacetime itself. The area around the impact point simply ceased to exist, taking a chunk of the Kethver ship with it. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 4 hours. The human ships moved with perfect coordination, their weapons striking with impossible accuracy. They used tactics the Kethver had never encountered. Some ships would fire and then disappear completely, only to reappear behind the enemy formation. Others split into smaller units that seemed to share a single mind. Commander Veltar watched his fleet die around him. Ships that had served the hegemony for centuries were reduced to scrap metal in minutes. The humans showed no mercy and took no prisoners. Every Kethver vessel was hunted down and destroyed with methodical precision. As his own ship's systems failed around him, Veltar tried to send a warning to Hegemony Command. The humans were not the weak primitives they had appeared to be. Something had gone terribly wrong with the intelligence reports. His transmission was cut short as a human weapon turned his command ship into an expanding cloud of plasma and metal. Admiral Chun stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, Humanities' new flagship, watching the last Kethver ship explode. The human fleet had suffered no losses. Not a single ship had even been seriously damaged. The technological gap that had seemed so vast 2 years ago had been closed and reversed. All ships begin salvage operations, Admiral Chun ordered. I want every piece of alien technology recovered and analyzed. Nothing gets away. Dr. Harper, now serving as the fleet's chief technology officer, studied the readings from the battle. Admiral, the new warp drives performed better than expected. We achieved nearly twice the velocity of the enemy ships. The exotic matter weapons were devastatingly effective against their armor. Admiral Chun nodded. And their shields? Useless against our plasma lance weapons. It appears they were designed to stop kinetic projectiles and conventional energy beams. Our weapons operate on completely different principles. The human fleet spent the next week systematically destroying every Kethver, outpost, and sensor station in the surrounding systems. They moved like ghosts, appearing without warning and vanishing before any response could be organized. Each attack provided more intelligence about Kethver military capabilities and infrastructure back on Earth. The news of the victory was met with grim satisfaction rather than celebration. President Vasquez addressed the planet from the rebuilt command center in Geneva. The enemy patrol fleet has been eliminated, she announced. Our forces suffered no casualties. This is not a cause for celebration, but a confirmation that our preparations were successful. The real war is just beginning. The Kethver leadership received word of the patrol fleet's destruction 3 days later. Initial reports suggested equipment failure or perhaps a natural disaster. The idea that the primitive humans had destroyed 47 advanced warships was considered impossible. Supreme Commander Kethvel, leader of the hegemony's military forces, convened an emergency meeting of the War Council. The assembled commanders represented centuries of military experience and the destruction of countless civilizations. Explain to me how an entire patrol fleet simply vanished. Kethvel demanded. Intelligence Chief Morkel presented his analysis. Supreme Commander, all evidence points to human involvement. The patrol fleet was destroyed in battle. No survivors, no escape pods, no distress signals that lasted more than a few seconds. The War Council erupted in angry chittering and clicking. The idea that the humans had improved their technology so dramatically in such a short time seemed impossible. The Kethver had been studying human capabilities for years. Their ships were slow, their weapons weak, their tactics primitive. How many ships do the humans have? Kethvel asked. Intelligence estimates suggest 300 to 400 vessels, Supreme Commander. However, our data may be outdated. Kethvel considered his options. A single patrol fleet had been lost, but the hegemony controlled thousands of ships across dozens of systems. The humans had achieved a minor victory through surprise and perhaps some technological improvements, but they were still vastly outnumbered. Deploy Battle Fleet Alpha to the human system, Kethvel ordered. 200 ships should be more than sufficient to end this annoyance permanently. As the Kethver prepared their response, the human fleet was already moving deeper into enemy territory. Admiral Chen had no intention of waiting for the aliens to organize a proper defense. The element of surprise was humanity's greatest advantage, and she planned to use it to maximum effect. The human ships split into smaller task forces, each targeting a different Kethver system. They struck supply depots, communication relays, and military installations with surgical precision. The aliens' vast empire, built over centuries of conquest, began to experience its first real military defeats in living memory. Dr. Kim, now commanding the Human Cyber Warfare Division, had achieved a breakthrough that would prove even more valuable than the new weapons. Human computer viruses, designed specifically for Kethver systems, were spreading through the alien communication networks. We are not just fighting their ships, Dr. Kim explained to Admiral Chun during a secure communication. We are fighting their entire information infrastructure. Every message they send, every order they give, every tactical plan they make, we can see it all. The Kethver found themselves fighting an enemy that always seemed to be one step ahead. Human forces appeared where they were least expected and vanished before effective countermeasures could be deployed. Supply convoys were ambushed. Reinforcement fleets were intercepted and destroyed. Command posts were eliminated with weapons. That seemed to come from nowhere. For the first time in their history, the Kethver hegemony was losing a war. Supreme Commander Kethval stood in the war room of the hegemony's greatest fortress, staring at a tactical display that showed disaster after disaster. Red markers indicated destroyed Kethver installations. Yellow markers showed systems under attack. In just 6 weeks, the humans had penetrated deeper into hegemony space than any enemy in the past 5 centuries. "Report?" Kethval demanded, his voice carrying the authority of absolute command. General Vorthok, veteran of dozens of campaigns, approached the display with obvious reluctance. "Supreme Commander, we have lost contact with 17 military outposts, 11 supply depots, and 4 major shipyards. The humans strike without warning and leave no survivors." Kethval's 4 eyes focused on the pattern of attacks. The humans were not fighting like any species the hegemony had encountered before. They did not attempt to hold territory or establish bases. They simply appeared, destroyed everything of military value, and vanished back into deep space. "Where is Battle Fleet Alpha?" Kethval asked. "Destroyed, Supreme Commander. They engaged the human fleet near the Zikamor system." The battle lasted 11 hours. No Kethver ship survived. The silence in the war room was deafening. Battle Fleet Alpha had consisted of 200 of the hegemony's most advanced warships. The fleet had destroyed entire civilizations. Now, it was nothing but debris floating in space. "How is this possible?" Kethval demanded. "Our intelligence reports indicated the humans possessed primitive technology. Their ships were slow and weak." Intelligence Chief Morkel stepped forward, his normally proud bearing replaced by obvious fear. "Supreme Commander, our intelligence was based on observations made during the initial cleansing operation. The humans have undergone a complete technological transformation in the past 2 years. Their current capabilities exceed our own in multiple areas." Kethval turned to study the tactical display more carefully. The human attack showed a level of coordination and intelligence gathering that suggested infiltration of hegemony communication networks. Somehow, the humans knew exactly where to strike for maximum damage. "Deploy battle fleets Beta, Gamma, and Delta," Kethval ordered. 600 ships should overwhelm them regardless of their technological advantages. Admiral Chun received intelligence about the Kethver fleet movements while her task force was refueling at a hidden base in the asteroid belt of an uninhabited system. The base was one of dozens that humanity had constructed in secret over the past 2 years, each one a fully operational shipyard and supply depot. "They're finally taking us seriously," Admiral Chun told her assembled fleet commanders. 600 ships are moving to intercept our forces. This will be the largest space battle in recorded history. Captain Morrison, commanding the battle. Cruiser U.S. Vengeance, studied the enemy fleet composition. "Admiral, even with our technological advantages, those are difficult odds. 600 against our 350. Admiral Chun smiled grimly. "Captain, you're thinking like the old Earth Defense Force. We're not the same military that failed to protect the colonies." Dr. Harper briefed them on our new capabilities. Dr. Harper activated a holographic display showing the latest human ship designs. "Ladies and gentlemen, meet the Titan-class battlecruiser. Each ship carries enough firepower to destroy an entire planet. More importantly, they carry the new quantum entanglement communication systems. Every ship in our fleet can coordinate with every other ship instantly, regardless of distance." The display showed tactical simulations of the new fleet in action. The ships moved with perfect synchronization, sharing targeting data and coordinating attacks within human precision. It was not just technology that gave humans their advantage, it was the way they used that technology. "The Kethver fight as individual ships with individual commanders," Dr. Harper continued. "We fight as a single organism with 350 parts. They have more ships, but we have one fleet. The battle began 3 days later in the Morkit system, home to a major Kethver military academy. The alien fleet arrived first, taking defensive positions around the planet. Their commanders expected the humans to attack directly, following conventional military tactics. Instead, the human fleet split into 7 separate groups and attacked from different directions simultaneously. The quantum communication system allowed perfect coordination across light years of space. While one group engaged the main Kethver fleet, another struck the orbital installations. A third group appeared behind the enemy formation and began destroying support vessels. Admiral Kethser, commanding the combined Kethver fleets, found himself fighting an enemy that seemed to anticipate his every move. When he ordered his ships to concentrate fire on one human group, another group would appear in an unexpected location. When he tried to protect his supply ships, the humans would strike at his heavy cruisers. The human weapons had improved dramatically since the first encounter. Plasma lances could now penetrate any known shield technology. Quantum torpedoes created localized gravity wells that crushed enemy ships. Most terrifying of all were the new nano-weapon pods that could disassemble Kethver vessels at the molecular level. Admiral, the communications officer, shouted over the noise of explosions and failing systems. "The humans are transmitting on all frequencies." Admiral Chun's voice filled the bridge of every Kethver ship. "Attention Kethver forces, you attacked our colonies without warning. You murdered 2 million innocent civilians. You declared war on humanity. We are here to finish what you started. Surrender now and your crews will be spared. Continue fighting and you will all die." Admiral Kethser's response was to order his remaining ships to ram the human vessels. It was a desperate tactic, but perhaps superior. Numbers could still achieve victory through sacrifice. The ramming attacks failed completely. Human ships simply vanished when Kethver vessels approached, reappearing elsewhere with their weapons already charging. The human mastery of space-time manipulation had reached a level that made conventional tactics useless. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the Kethver fleets were completely destroyed. Not a single human ship had been lost. The humans collected every piece of wreckage, analyzed every weapon system, and interrogated every survivor before releasing them with a message for their leaders. Word of the catastrophic defeat reached Hegemony Command within hours. Supreme Commander Kethvel found himself facing a military disaster unprecedented in Kethver history. Over 800 of their finest warships had been destroyed in less than 2 months. The humans had achieved total space superiority in every engagement. What do the survivors report about human capabilities? Kethvel asked. General Vorthak reviewed the debriefing transcripts. Supreme Commander, the humans appear to have developed technology that borders on impossible. Their ships can appear and disappear at will. Their weapons can destroy matter at the quantum level. Their coordination is perfect, as if controlled by a single mind. Kethvel realized that conventional military thinking would not defeat these humans. Deploy biological weapons against their remaining settlements. If we cannot defeat their fleets, we will eliminate their breeding populations. The order went out to Kethver biological warfare units stationed throughout the galaxy. Plague ships were dispatched toward human space, carrying engineered viruses designed to eliminate all human life. It was a weapon of last resort, banned by most civilized species, but the hegemony was desperate. The plague ships never reached their targets. Human intelligence networks, now thoroughly infiltrated into Kethver communication systems, provided advance warning of every biological attack. The ships were intercepted and destroyed while still far from human space. Their crews were captured and forced to provide information about other hegemony biological weapons programs. Dr. Kim, monitoring the interrogations from Earth, compiled a report for the War Council. The Kethver have violated every convention of civilized warfare. They target civilian populations, use biological weapons, and refuse all attempts at negotiation. I recommend we respond in kind. President Vasquez reviewed the recommendation with a heavy heart. Humanity had always prided itself on moral superiority, but these enemies had left no room for mercy or restraint. Deploy the planet killers, she ordered quietly. The weapons were humanity's most closely guarded secret. Devices that could destabilize a planet's core, turning entire worlds into expanding clouds of superheated plasma. They had been built as a deterrent, never intended for actual use. But the Kethver had made their choice when they tried to use biological weapons against innocent humans. The first target was Kethver Prime, the homeworld and capital of the hegemony. The planet was heavily defended by orbital weapons platforms and shield generators that could protect against any conventional attack. But the human planet killer worked by quantum tunneling, bypassing all defenses to strike directly at the planetary core. Supreme Commander Kethval was in his command bunker when the weapon struck. For a brief moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the ground began to shake. The planet's core, destabilized by human technology, began to collapse and then expand in a chain reaction that would consume the entire world. As his homeworld died around him, Kethval finally understood the truth. 6 months after the destruction of Kethver Prime, Ambassador Velthara of the Zephyrian Confederation stood nervously in the reception hall of the new human embassy on Luna Base. The embassy was a massive structure of gleaming metal and crystal, a statement of power that dominated the lunar landscape. Around her, representatives from dozens of alien species waited for their audiences with human officials. The galaxy had changed completely in less than 3 years. The Kethver hegemony, which had ruled this region of space for over a millennium, was gone. Every one of their worlds had been conquered or destroyed. Their fleets were scattered debris floating in space. Their survivors lived in human prison camps, awaiting trial for war crimes. In their place stood humanity, the species that most galactic civilizations had never even heard of until recently. Now human ships patrolled every major trade route. Human bases controlled strategic star systems. Human representatives sat in the councils of every major government, their voices carrying the weight of absolute military superiority. Ambassador Velthara, a human aide, announced. President Vasquez will see you now? Velthara followed the aide through corridors lined with displays showing human achievements. Images of vast shipyards, scientific breakthroughs, and military victories made it clear that humanity was not just another emerging power. They had become the dominant force in this part of the galaxy. President Vasquez waited in an office that overlooked Earth through massive windows. The planet below showed the scars of total mobilization, industrial complexes that stretched across continents, orbital elevators reaching into space, and the constant movement of ships carrying resources to fuel humanity's expansion. Ambassador, President Vasquez said, gesturing to a chair across from her desk, I understand the Zephyrian Confederation wishes to establish formal diplomatic relations. Velthara sat carefully, aware that every word she spoke might determine her species' future. President Vasquez, my government wishes to express our deep desire for peaceful cooperation with humanity. We offer exclusive trade agreements, technology sharing, and mutual defense pacts. President Vasquez studied the alien diplomat with calm, calculating eyes. Tell me, Ambassador, what was your government's position when the Kethver attacked our colonies? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Velthara knew that several species had already been punished for their past cooperation with the hegemony. Human justice was swift and absolute. Madam President, the Zephyrian Confederation maintained strict neutrality during that conflict. We had no knowledge of the Kethver plans and took no action to support their operations. But you also took no action to warn us or assist our colonists, President Vasquez pointed out. Your neutrality meant that 2 million innocent humans died while your people watched from the sidelines. Velthara felt her throat go dry. We deeply regret the loss of human life. If we had known You did know, President Vasquez interrupted, sliding a datapad across the desk. Our intelligence services have recovered Kethver communication records. Your government received advance notice of the attack. You chose to do nothing. The datapad displayed intercepted messages showing Zephyrian officials discussing the upcoming human cleansing operation. They had known innocent people would die. But they had calculated that staying neutral was safer than opposing the hegemony. President Vasquez stood and walked to the window, looking down at Earth. The galaxy operated under certain rules for thousands of years. The strong preyed upon the weak. Neutral parties looked the other way when convenient. Military might determined who lived and who died. She turned back to face the terrified ambassador. Those rules no longer apply? Humanity has established new rules, and they are very simple. Any species that threatens human civilians will be eliminated. Any species that assists our enemies will be eliminated. Any species that stands by and watches while humans are murdered will face consequences. Valthara struggled to maintain her composure. What kind of consequences? President Vasquez returned to her desk and activated a holographic display. It showed the Zephyrian home system, with human ships positioned around every planet and major installation. The Zephyrian Confederation will cede 20% of its territory to human administration. You will provide resource quotas to support human military operations. Your government will be restructured under human oversight to ensure compliance with the new galactic order. The terms were harsh but not impossible. Other species had received much worse. The Korth Republic had been completely dissolved after. Evidence emerged of their active support for Kethver operations. The Stellar Alliance had lost half their territory for providing intelligence to the hegemony. We accept, Valthara said quickly. The Confederation agrees to all human terms? President Vasquez nodded. Excellent. Your compliance will be noted favorably in future negotiations. There will be future negotiations, Ambassador? Humanity is not finished reshaping this galaxy. As Valthara left the embassy, she passed other alien diplomats waiting for their own audiences. Some represented species seeking alliance with humanity. Others came to surrender territories or accept punishment for past actions. All of them understood that the old galactic order was dead. Admiral Chun stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, now flagship of the largest fleet in galactic history. Through the viewports, she could see the construction activity around New Terra, the planet where humanity's space age had effectively ended, was being rebuilt as the capital of their new interstellar empire. The original colony sites were now marked by massive monuments listing the names of every person who had died in the Kethver attack. But surrounding those monuments were new cities, larger and more advanced than anything the original colonists had dreamed possible. Admiral, her communications officer reported, we're receiving surrender offers from the remaining Kethver. Holdouts in the Outer Rim, 3 more star systems are requesting terms. Admiral Chun nodded. The last scattered remnants of the hegemony were finally accepting the inevitable. Those who surrendered would be allowed to live under human oversight. Those who continued to resist would join their leaders in extinction. Accept their surrenders, Admiral Chun ordered. Standard terms: complete disarmament, human military governors, and war crimes tribunals for any officers involved in attacks on civilian populations. Dr. Kim entered the bridge carrying a datapad with the latest intelligence reports. As head of Human Intelligence Services, she now commanded a network of spies and informants that reached into every major civilization in the galaxy. Admiral, we've detected concerning activity in the galactic core region. Several ancient species are forming what they call a coalition of concerned worlds to discuss the human expansion. Admiral Chun studied the intelligence report. The coalition included some of the oldest and most technologically advanced species in the galaxy. They had remained neutral during the human-Kethver War, but they were clearly becoming nervous about humanity's growing power. What's their likely course of action? Admiral Chun asked. Unknown, but some of their communications suggest they view humanity as a potential threat to galactic stability. They may be considering preemptive action. Admiral Chun felt a familiar anger rising in her chest. It was the same pattern that had led to the destruction of the colonies. Alien species deciding that humans were a threat that needed to be eliminated before they became too powerful. Dr. Kim, prepare contingency plans for coalition systems. If they want to repeat the Kethver's mistakes, we'll give them the same lesson. The lesson was clear to anyone who studied recent galactic history. Humanity had been peaceful explorers until forced to become warriors. They had shown mercy to their enemies until those enemies used biological weapons against civilians. They had followed the conventional rules of warfare until their opponents tried to exterminate them completely. Each escalation had been met with overwhelming human response. The galaxy was learning that humans did not simply defend themselves. They eliminated threats permanently. President Vasquez addressed the United Earth Council. 1 year after the end of the HFY War, the chamber was now filled with representatives from humanity's growing empire, including several alien species that had chosen cooperation over resistance. The transformation of our species is complete, President Vasquez announced. We are no longer the curious explorers who first reached for the stars. We are no longer the naive peacekeepers who believed all conflicts could be resolved through diplomacy. We have become something new. She gestured to displays showing human ships patrolling trade routes, human bases controlling strategic systems, and human colonies spreading across dozens of worlds. We are the guardians of galactic order. We are the force that ensures no species will ever again face unprovoked genocide. We are the civilization that other worlds look to for protection or fear for their survival. The assembly listened in silence as President Vasquez outlined humanity's role in the new galactic order. They would not seek conquest for its own sake, but they would never again allow themselves to be vulnerable to attack. Any species that threatened human civilians would face immediate and total retaliation. The HFY taught us a valuable lesson, President Vasquez concluded.